Okay. Anything else? Okay. Prosecution, are you prepared to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
And defense, are you prepared to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, this concludes our pretrial conference. Bailiff, please open the court.
All rise. The U.S. District Court for Middle District is open to proceed. All having business before its honorable or drawn in, give attention, you shall be heard. Please.
Before we begin the evidentiary hearing on defendant Morgan Remy's motion to suppress, I have a brief message to share with today's participants. We all have feelings, assumptions, perceptions, fears, and stereotypes about others. Some biases we are aware of and others we might not be fully aware of, which is why they are called implicit biases or unconscious biases. Our biases often affect how we act favorably or unfavorably towards someone. Biases can affect our thoughts, how we remember, and what we see and hear, whom we believe or disbelieve, and how we make important decisions. As participants in the Ohio mock trial program, it is important to resist jumping to conclusions or acting upon personal likes or dislikes. Resist letting bias, prejudice, or public opinion influence your behavior inside or outside of the courtroom. Treat all individuals with respect, regardless of ability, gender, race, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, age, national origin, or socioeconomic status. The prosecution shall make its opening statement.
Permission to speak, Your Honor.
Oh, please proceed.
Your Honor, this case is not about genetic privacy. It's about whether analyzing lawfully obtained third-party records constitutes a search under the Fourth Amendment. We are here today because the state alleged that the defendant, Morgan Remy, murdered Caleb Jansen. On May 22, 2000, Caleb Jansen was found dead in his apartment. HPD, Harmony Police Department, were able to recover two essential pieces of evidence. First, being skin cells found under Mr. Jason's fingernails, and two, a signet ring of Mr. Jason's that was missing. At the time, the investigation failed and went cold. Years later, reopening, using investigative genetic genealogy, or IgG. On May 24, 2025, Frankie Moya submitted and voluntarily submitted his DNA profile to Gene Heritage, a genetic testing website that permits law enforcement access. The DNA profile already existed in Gene Heritage and was able to match with Frankie Moya's DNA by using the forensics DNA found in the murder scene. The defendant now moves to suppress this evidence, claiming the use of the DNA violated his Fourth Amendment rights. The states will prove that it did not, and no unconstitutional search ever occurred. The evidentiary hearing is governed by a preponderance of the evidence standard. The question before the court is whether it is more likely than not that law enforcement acted within the bounds of the Fourth Amendment. The state will prove that they did. The state's position is simple. IgG did not involve collecting any new evidence, did not intrude into any protective space, and solely used lawfully obtained third-party records to generate an investigative lead. Under the third-party doctrine, no person has a reasonable expectation of privacy if the information they voluntarily shared with third parties. As affirmed in Carpenter v. United States, the rules continue to apply to ordinary business records knowingly disclosed to private companies are not protected under the Fourth Amendment. The DNA profile used here belonged to Frankie Moya, not the defendant. Moya voluntarily submitted his DNA to the private company that permits law enforcement access, and investigators took no action involving the defendant until a match was identified. Because the Fourth Amendment rights are personal, the defendant lacks standing to challenge the voluntary disclosure of another person's data and voluntary consent, seen in Georgia v. Randolph. Moya's consent was valid. Under Shanclaw v. Bustamante, consent is effective when given voluntary, even without the knowledge. A person does not need to know every possible legal consequence that can happen when giving consent. Once the government lawfully possesses information through voluntary consent from Frankie Moya, analyzing the information does not transform it into a new Fourth Amendment search. The evidence will show that the law enforcement did not collect any new evidence from the defendant, did not intrude any protective space, access only lawfully held third-party records, and use IgG solely as an analytical tool to generate an investigative lead. Under Carpenter, Randolph, and Shanklaw, investigative genetic genealogy, or IgG, was not a new search, not an intrusion, and not a constitutional violation. For these reasons, the state respectfully asks the court to deny the motion to suppress. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense, you shall make your opening.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
May it please the court. Your Honor, my name is Dev Packler, and I, along with my co-counsel, will be representing Morgan Remy in the case State of Buckeye versus Morgan Remy. Now, this is a piece of paper. It is the key to unlock secrets. Secrets that can reveal our heritage, long-lost family members, and even genetic health risks. This piece of paper, the process of extracting DNA and then using genealogical evidence, tells us so much about who we are, and that very nature of it is the most frightening. But it can also be subject to overzealous criminal investigations that infringe on our Fourth Amendment rights. We are here today because the state of Buckeye violated Morgan Remy's Fourth Amendment rights. The Fourth Amendment protects us from all unreasonable searches and seizures. My client, Morgan Remy, never consented to his DNA to be searched. It was not volunteered. It was uncovered from a relative. The burden today is on the state of Buckeye. We are here today because the burden today is on the state of Buckeye to establish compliance with the Fourth Amendment by preponderance of evidence, and they will fail to do so. In the year 2000, a 24-year-old man known as Caleb C.J. Jansen was found deceased in his apartment, the result of an apparent violent struggle. No fingerprints were found, no fibers were found, practically nothing at all was found, except for skin cells scraped underneath from CJ's fingernails that belonged to somebody else. For 25 years, the Harmony Police Department did very little to solve this case, and they got desperate. So desperate that in 2018, the Harmony Police Department went to a consumer genealogy company called Gene Heritage. The idea the Harmony Police Department had was quite simple. Maybe one of their relatives has sent in a kit, and they can use that to build a family tree. In 2025, Gene Heritage flagged a potential match to Frankie Moyo, a high school student who uploaded his DNA so he could get extra credit in a class. As a result of Frankie submitting their DNA, they were able to build a family tree, get a warrant, and put my client Morgan Remy into custody after cross-referencing DNA. Our argument here is straightforward. The state of Buckeye relied on private genealogical data obtained from Gene Heritage without proper consent and lawful authority to do so. Because of this, all resulting evidence that is used in this case must be suppressed as fruit of the poisonous tree. In Georgia v. Randolph, the Supreme Court held that the third-party doctrine does not overcome an individual's privacy interest in unique information for which the individual has a reasonable expectation of privacy to. DNA and genealogy are that kind of information. During the trial, the defense will call up two witnesses. The first witness is Haven Peters, an independent journalist who focuses on true crime and media ethics. He has a Bachelor's of Arts in Broadcast Journalism from Buckeye Northern University. He is the creator and host of Reasonable Doubt, a Wemby Award-winning podcast. He has researched and studied many cases involving investigative genetic genealogy. Haven will testify to the ethical concerns of investigative genetic genealogy. During the second witness we will call up is Val Barak. Currently, she is 20 years old and a sophomore at the Buckeye State University. Ms. Barrick was enrolled in the same class as Frankie Moyo when the extra credit assignment was given out. She would testify how the terms and conditions used by Gene Heritage are predatory. At the end of this trial, we are confident that you will give DNA the unique privacy protection so sorely needed in today's evolving society. We are asking the court today to grant the motion to suppress all evidence collected due to the DNA match as fruit of the poisonous tree. Thank you.
Thank you. Bailiff, will you please swear in our witnesses?
All the witnesses and parties who are given or to give the testimony, we proceed to step to the front. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm that the testimonies you are to give will comply with the facts and rules of the Ohio mock trial competition? I do.
Counsel for the prosecution, you may call your first witness.
Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call Frankie Moyo to the stand.
So this is actually the witness chair over here. We have a nice little ADA compliant ramp and maze to come on up, and then go right ahead and have a seat.
Good afternoon, Mr. Moyo.
Good afternoon, sir.
Can you tell the court your name and tell the court a little bit about yourself?
My name is Frankie Moyo, M-O-Y-O. I'm a 19-year-old at Buckeye State University. And a little bit about myself, I like science, most particularly forensic science, because when I was 18, my parents told me that I was adopted. So I want to find my biological parents.
What about your background drives your interest in forensic science and police work?
When I was younger, I really was into superheroes. People like Spider-Man, Batman, and especially Superman. Those characters right there are in love with justice and truth. They strive for it. So I want that to be my passion too. That's why I'm into forensics and police work.
Please tell us about the extra credit assignment from your forensics class.
It was the end of the year, and Bailey Kim, my professor, gave us an assignment to put our DNA on a website and write a report about it.
And why did you choose to do that assignment?
I chose to do that assignment because my grades weren't looking so good. I mean, I had a B+, but I wanted to bump it up a little bit before the end of the year.
Why did you choose the Gene Heritage site?
Well, it was the only free site available. Most of the other sites costed money that was way out of my budget.
Did you have to pay for Gene Heritage at all?
At first, no, but to find out my health risk, I had to pay $49.
What happened during the whole sign-up process?
The first part of the sign-up process was pretty easy. Next came up terms and conditions. I scrolled all the way down and pressed agree. And also, after that was law enforcement, which I also pressed agree for.
Were there any confusing or questionable parts about the sign-up process?
The only thing that really stuck me up was I had to scroll all the way down for terms and conditions until I can move on to the next step.
And how were you informed that your DNA had been used to solve a cold case?
I was at a drive-thru, and Detective Ronan actually called me and said, well, sorry to say, but your information and your DNA has been used to find a cold case or solve a cold case, which led to Morgan Remy.
Do you feel misled or upset about the fact that you allowed police access to your DNA?
Not really. Actually, I'm all for it because I'm all for justice and truth, as I said before. So if I could put a criminal away, that would be very great.
Do you think it was odd that the detective informed you about your internship first, then about your DNA?
Not really. I guess it was just good for the good news to go first, except for the bad news.
Can you tell the court unequivocally if you're glad that the police used your DNA for the cold case?
Yeah, I'm pretty psyched about it because that brings me a little closer to the police. And as I said before, justice is one of my main goals right now.
Your Honor, no further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Good afternoon, Mr. Moyo. I'll be asking you a couple questions today. My name is Dev Packrell, and if anything I ask you seems confusing or misleading in any way, you let me know and I'll rephrase that question, okay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moyo, you're 19 years old, right?
Yes.
Okay. And at the time you submitted your DNA, you were 18-year-old, correct?
I was 18, yeah.
You had not finished high school yet, correct?
No.
You were enrolled in the CCP courses through Buckeye State Community College dual enrollment program, right?
Yeah.
So you were still a student in both systems at once, correct?
Yeah, I was doing both.
And you were not working full-time then, correct?
No.
So you didn't have much disposable income, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, would you just...
I need a verbal answer.
Oh, sorry, yes.
So at that time, would you describe yourself as being a broke college student?
I wasn't particularly broke, but I wasn't financially stable.
Okay. And your class presented several DNA testing companies as options, correct?
Yes.
Some of these companies charge $60, right?
Or yes.
So others even charge $350, right?
Yes.
And Gene Heritage advertised itself as being free, correct?
Yes, it was free.
And that was a major reason you selected Gene Heritage, right?
Yes.
So saving money was a primary factor for your decision to pick Gene Heritage?
Yes, it was.
You did not choose Gene Heritage because it had the strongest privacy protections, right? You chose it because it was cheaper, correct?
Yes.
Now, from what I understand, you had a couple motivations to give your DNA away, right?
Yes, I did.
One of them was finding lost siblings, correct? The other one, and you read on Wikipedia that you can learn about health risks, correct?
Yes, I did.
And after submitting your DNA, you received initial results, correct?
Yes, I did.
And they told you had a moderate increased health risk, correct?
Yes.
But at that time, the company, Gene Heritage, did not explain what that risk was, right?
No, it didn't.
Instead, they wanted you to pay money to get access to that information, correct?
Yes, they did.
And you testified that you had to fork over $49, correct?
Again, a
Yes.
verbal answer.
Sorry,
Thank
yes.
you.
That $49 charge was not something you expected when you first signed up, correct?
Yes.
But you paid anyways because you needed the results for your assignment, right?
Yeah, I did.
And you also were concerned about your health, right?
Yeah.
And both of these motivations are especially important to you because you're adopted, right?
Yes, they were.
Closed adoption, right? And before you gave your family's DNA, you knew nothing about your biological family, correct?
I did not.
And another motivation was to get a bump in your grade, right?
Yeah, to boost it up a little bit.
Yeah. But it wasn't to have the DNA used by law enforcement, right?
No.
And you personally think that it's pretty cool that your DNA was used to solve a crime, right?
Yeah, I'm all for it.
You previously indicated that these terms and conditions were laborious, right?
Can you restate that word?
Laborious, it's in your written statement.
Yeah, it was.
Could you please say the meaning of that word to the court?
Laborious? Yeah. Laborious means...
Do you want me to give the definition?
Counsel, please move on.
And because these terms were laborious, you didn't read them, correct?
Yes.
You just scrolled right through them, correct?
Yeah, I did.
And the law enforcement agreement policy was on page 2, and you just scrolled right through those too, right?
Yeah, because nobody really reads them anymore.
Now, you understand that you agreed to the law enforcement use policy, right?
Yes.
Because it was an opt-out policy where you would have to take further action not to have your DNA used by police, correct?
Yes.
In your testimony, you said if you had read it, you would have opted in anyways, right?
Yeah, I would have.
But that opinion is in hindsight, correct?
Yes.
Not an informed decision you made at that time, correct?
Yes.
You understand that this testimony would help the state of Buckeye, correct?
It would.
To be even more specific, it would help the Harmony Police Department, right?
Yeah.
And that is the same police department that you're going to intern for, right?
Yes.
You wanted to work in the forensics department, correct?
Yeah. Technician.
And you currently are expected to intern for the Harmony Police Department, right?
Yes.
And you found out you got this information from a phone call from Detective Sala, correct?
Yes, I did.
Are you aware that that is the same detective that is working this case?
I actually don't know.
And in that phone call, when you asked for the forensic science internship, Detective Sala told you that internship was highly competitive, right?
Yeah, it was.
But the detective told you they could see what they can do about that, right?
Yes.
And then in that same phone call, Detective Sala told you that your DNA was a partial match on one of the cold cases, correct?
Yeah, 25%.
Yeah. And now the police department you're going to work for is using your DNA with the support of your testimony today, right?
Yes, they are.
Now, no one has explicitly told you that this internship depended on your testimony today. Is that right?
No.
But you are giving your testimony today does help your future employer, correct?
Yes.
So I have to ask, is your hindsight support for the use of the DNA motivated by a desire to get a preferred internship with the Harmony Police Department?
Restate it. Or not restate it, but say it again.
So I have to ask, is your hindsight support for the use of your DNA motivated by your desire to get your preferred internship with the Harmony Police Department?
Yes.
Isn't it true that what you're really doing today, Frankie, is lying to get that internship?
Not particularly lying.
Whatever you say. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Mario, even though you did not read every terms and conditions, you did understand that you're submitting your DNA to a genetic company.
Yeah, of course.
At the time you submitted your DNA, what you were mainly hoping for was information about your family and ancestry.
Yes.
Right. After learning your DNA was used to help a murder, did you feel regret about submitting it?
No, I didn't because, as I said, I believe in truth and justice, and if I could put away a criminal, that's the best thing for me.
Would you have chosen differently if you knew your DNA would be accessed by law enforcement?
No.
Today, do you still believe that DNA is great to solve crimes?
Yeah. Lots of crimes are solved with DNA, actually.
Your Honor, no further questions.
Thank you.
Are you going to recross?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Counsel, you may step down. Prosecution can call its second witness.
Your Honor, prosecution would like to call Bailey Kim.
Counsel, you may proceed.
Good evening or good afternoon, Bailey Kim. Can you tell the court a little bit about yourself?
First off, like you stated, my name is Bailey Kim. Living in Malachite. I'm currently in my 60s. I'm a retired forensic lab technician. I'm currently an adjunct professor at Buckeye State University, community college. And I was known as a grandfather of forensics for most of my career.
Why do you think it is important to teach young students about genetics and police work?
Because I believe next generation is our future, and that we ourselves must prepare it.
Can you explain the difference between the CODIS system and IgG?
CODIS system is basically the combined index system where when an individual is convicted or charged with felony or something, their DNA is stored in a system database called CODIS. While IgG is a newer system that uses privately held DNA from corporations like Gene Heritage and such, uses that to match it into criminals trying to find convicted.
Why do you think IgG is such a fundamental tool?
Because if we were to take it away, it would deny families closure and justice and truth.
In your view, should consumer DNA companies share data with police?
Yes,
Why do you think that?
I believe every private DNA company should be obligated to do that because, like I stated earlier, every family and victim deserves closure.
Can you explain your views on privacy and these private DNA companies?
Could you please reiterate the question?
Could you explain your views on the DNA companies that are private?
And you have no negative views against them. If someone wants to put their DNA or take a vehicle swab to access them, they have the will too. But no one should be forced to use it. Everyone has their own will. So.
Can you give an example? Can you give an example of a case where genetic genealogy solved the crime?
Yeah, there's many examples I can use. For example, Golden State Killer, where Joseph D'Angelo was charged using genetic genealogy and such. Same as this case that we're in right now.
Why set the DNA assignment as an extra credit system?
It gives students the choice. Those who don't want to reveal their private, information and such, they can choose to reject or accept it.
Counsel, I'm going to have you move the microphone up just because you're so tall so that it is able to broadcast a little better so that I can hear you.
Is this?
That's better.
Thank you. The example that you explained earlier about the Golden State Killer case and Johansson, if that was his name, could you explain why that example matters?
It matters because it was one of the first cases ever used to solve using genetic genealogy, so it was a very crucial thingy start of it.
And that is all my questions. No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Good afternoon. My name is Keisha. I'm just going to be asking you some questions. Please answer to the best of your ability, and if you don't understand a question or need me to restate, please feel free to speak up. Professor Kim, let's talk DNA. Now, you mentioned some of the unique qualities of DNA, correct? How they can be used to determine heritage, for example? They can find out hereditary markers, correct?
You've got to speak up.
Sure.
Thank you.
Heritage gene pools, correct?
Yeah,
They can also find out genetic health risks. Is this true?
it is.
Like, for example, if they're at a higher risk for heart disease or cancer, correct?
Yeah, that can be done.
All very personal information. Would you agree?
Yeah,
Now, you testified that you previously worked as a forensic lab technician, correct?
I have.
For a local police department.
Yes,
And you're retired?
I am.
But you haven't lost your passion for using science to solve crimes, have you?
Absolutely not.
In fact, you are a big supporter of the use of consumer DNA companies to solve code cases, are you not?
I am.
Such a big supporter that you have always thought these consumer DNA companies should have an obligation to share what they have with law enforcement, correct?
I do because if one chooses to cooperate or share their DNA information to the company should have an obligation to share it because they chose to.
And quite frankly, you don't care what people may think about that, correct?
No, I do care about what people think. Yeah, because everyone should have an opinion, and I encourage that.
You do care what people think about that?
I do.
Do you remember preparing a written statement for this trial?
I believe so. Yeah.
Would seeing a copy of this written statement help jog your memory?
Yeah, I don't contain it currently, but I can share it.
Let the record reflect that I am showing the opposing counsel a clean and unmarked copy of his written statement. Could you please read lines 107 to 110?
107.
107 through 110.
Cases will be solved. With it, I mean, it might be insensitive to say this, but isn't it at least a little bit cool to find out your DNA and could help police track criminals?
Oh,
and
sorry,
justice?
wrong page. I meant, could you read lines 46 to 48, please?
I've always thought that consumer DNA companies should have an obligation to share what they have with law enforcement. I'm not too concerned for other people may think about that, but I see the arguments for privacy. And they are fair, but no one is forcing anyone to send their DNA to companies, like I stated.
To take it a step farther, you consider it a civic duty for people to upload their personal DNA information to solve code cases, right? And that's why you added this so-called
I don't
extra
think I got
credit.
an answer. Did you answer?
I said yeah.
You just went on. You need to wait for an answer.
He said yes. And that's why you added this so-called extra credit assignment to your forensic science class, correct?
No. Yes and no, because the main reason why I added assignment was because it was based on our course, and I thought it was important for students to learn about the future of genealogy and how it can affect us.
Well, let's take a closer look at that. Now, your class has both high school and college students, correct?
Correct.
So a variety of young people naive to the ways of DNA and law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
And a big part of this assignment was how using their DNA could change the criminal justice world, correct?
Let me see. Yeah.
And you pushed them towards this company called Gene Heritage, correct?
No, I did not push them towards it. I gave out multiple and several companies for them to choose from. It was simply their choice. Plus, it was an extra credit, so
Well, let's face it, this is not the most transparent company, is it?
how can you tell me?
They advertise their service as free, correct?
True,
But it isn't really free, is it?
it is free.
Well, are you aware that their initial results will only tease a customer, letting them know they have a genetic health risk, but not telling them what that health risk is?
The thing is, the customer has a choice to whether answer to that or no, because they get what they asked for, which was the DNA information. They know who their ancestors are. The question is, will the customer further analyze that or go into that, go deeper into it? That's their choice, not mine. Plus, they're adults. Choose for themselves.
So are you aware that their initial results will only tease a customer? Yes or no?
No.
And then they could only find out about that health risk by forking over some of their money. Were you not aware of that?
No.
You are aware, though, that they have an opt-out law enforcement provision as opposed to an opt-in, correct?
I am.
Meaning your high school and college students would have had to take extra steps to not have their DNA shared with the law enforcement, correct?
You could say so.
And you didn't explain this to them, did you?
I did. It was in our syllabus. The ones who could read it chose to read it, like Valbrack stated. You can have choice to read it, but you can choose to or not to. That is on you.
Well, you didn't bother to tell them that there were other companies they could use that had stricter law enforcement policies, correct?
Like I stated in my testimony, I stated that students can choose other companies that I have already beforehand approved. So there were other options other than the ones I provided for them.
In fact, a lot of your students underestimated the power of this assignment, did they not?
They did.
You wanted their DNA to be shared with law enforcement. Is that true?
They had a choice to do that, yeah.
And you didn't care about the consequences, did you?
I did care about consequences because consequences are for the betterment of the world.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Based on your decades of experience, do you believe law enforcement generally acts on good faith when using forensics tools?
I do.
Was the purpose of your extra credit assignment to encourage learning about how DNA is actually used in the real world?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though no technology is perfect, is DNA still considered one of the most reliable forms of evidence in forensic science?
Yep, it should be. Always will be.
In your professional opinion, is IgG typically used as a first step or a last resort in investigations?
Currently, it should be used as a last resort, but in the future, I can see it moving into first step.
Why do you believe it is important for students and future investigators to understand and use this technology responsibly?
Let's say, truth, justice, and closure is very important. And understanding those steps, like I've tried to teach my course, says at Buckeye Community College, is very important. Misusing and mishandling things such as that is very critical and should not be let go. So it's better for students to learn about it earlier and know what they're doing henceforth.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any recross?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Thank you.
Counsel for defense, you may call your first witness.
Your Honor, the defense would like to call Haven Peters to the stand. May I proceed, Your Honor?
You may.
Could you please state your name?
Of course. Well, as you heard, my name is Haven Peters.
Good afternoon, Mr. Peters. How are you doing today?
I'm doing exceptionally well today, Mr. Packer. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great as well, Mr. Peters. Thank you for asking. What's your current occupation?
I'm an investigative journalist with a focus on true crime and media ethics. I also have my own podcast.
And what professional education do you have in this particular field?
I have a Bachelor of Arts in Broadcast Journalism from Buckeye Northern University, and I also have a Master of Fine Arts in Narrative Media Writing from the Buckeye State University.
And have you continued your academic and professional learning since earning those degrees?
Oh, yes, of course. I like to stay up to date with technological advances in criminal investigations and also with literature with DNA privacy and investigative genetic genealogy, also known as IgG for short.
And Mr. Peters, what led you to become a podcaster?
Well, at first, I was taken aback by the ethics of social media, and to be more specific, podcasters. But that's when I decided they need someone like me. Someone not to bore them, but someone to tell the truth. Someone to tell the truth.
You briefly mentioned that you have a podcast. Does this podcast have any awards?
Oh, yes. My podcast, Reasonable Doubt, is a Webby Award-winning podcast in the crime and justice genre. Also, one of my episodes, The Dark Side of Genetic Genealogy, was also nominated.
And Mr. Peters, have you spoken publicly about IgG?
Oh, yes. I've been on countless of podcasts as the expert to talk about the ethical concerns and dangers with IgG.
And Mr. Peters, have you ever testified before a legislative body regarding IgG?
Oh, yes. I testified before the Buckeye State House in support of House Bill 12, a bill designed to protect DNA privacy.
And was your testimony based on research into IgG and its risks?
Yes. My testimony was about the consequences of unregulated investigative genetic genealogy.
And Mr. Peters, have you studied real-world cases where IgG has had a negative impact?
Oh, yes, of course. You know how much research it takes to have a Webby Award-winning podcast?
Could you briefly tell us about one of those cases?
Yes. One of the cases that pop into my head is Michael User Jr. Police use personal data in the case that from Ancestry.com that tied to Michael User Jr. He was then told he was a prime suspect for a murder case. He was interrogated for 3 hours. 3 hours. He was then placed under suspicion for 3 weeks until finally a DNA swabbed him and he was cleared. But although he was cleared, his life was uprooted and changed.
Are there any more cases like this one?
Yes. In 2019, police used IgG to compile a pool of suspects for a murder case that happened 30 years prior. Richard Knapp was one of those suspects. Police surveilled him until he discarded garbage that happened to be a cigarette. They took that cigarette and analyzed it, and it was a match to the case. Knapp fully denied any involvement in the murder.
And what happened to Mr. Knapp?
Oh, man. Mr. Knapp. He was arrested, arraigned, denied bail, and held in pretrial detention for 3 years. During this time, he lost his job, his house, his reputation, and tragically, his wife passed away.
And before the trial started, what happened?
Before the trial started, 2 weeks before the trial started, a new testimony came in, and Knapp was cleared. But although he was cleared, his life did not fully recover.
Mr. Peters, for your podcast and personal interest, have you spent a lot of time researching and analyzing in the field of investigative genetic genealogy?
Of course. It takes a lot of time and effort to have a fantastic podcast like mine.
You mentioned your degrees are in journalism and media ethics. Do you have any degrees in forensic science?
Unfortunately, I do not. But I will not hold myself out there to be a forensic scientist. Just like police and detectives are not forensic scientists. But like them, I study the impact on privacy and criminal investigations.
So do you believe you have specialized knowledge in the field of investigative genetic genealogy?
Yes, of course.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense moves to qualify Haven Peters as an expert in the field of investigative genetic genealogy.
No response from counsel?
No, Your Honor.
And again, very specifically, what area?
Rule 702.
No. What area are you?
Investigative genetic genealogy.
Investigative genetic genealogy?
Yeah.
Seeing no objections, so certified. If you'd gone beyond that, it would have been no.
Mr. Peters, can you tell us more about your concerns related to the use of IgG?
Yes, of course. My concerns, historically, you need a warrant or probable cause to get DNA from a suspect. These DNA companies have created what we call a back door.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that, Mr. Packrell, is basically they get DNA from your relatives, and that could tie to you in a criminal investigation. But not because of what you've done, but because who you are related to, and that's dangerous.
What other concerns do you have?
Other concerns I have is companies like Gene Heritage who hide their cooperation with law enforcement. They bury law enforcement disclosure and make the consumer take extra steps to get out of police databases. That's not transparency. That's a system built off assumption. And that's a serious ethical issue.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
So, you are a journalist and not a forensic scientist, correct?
Investigative journalist, yes.
Okay. You do not have a degree in genetics or biology?
Nope. Like I said, I did not have a degree, and I would not hold myself out to that degree.
You have never worked in a crime lab?
No?
You have never conducted DNA testing yourself?
No, sir.
You host a podcast about true crime and media ethics?
Yes, and I also talk about the dangers of investigative genealogy.
Your podcast focuses on the downsides of forensic methods?
Yes, like I said, it focuses on, like what we said, in the investigative genealogy. But I wasn't saying all of it was bad. I was saying, like we said, the downsides of it.
And you have described yourself as a leading voice warning people about genealogy?
Yes, sir.
So you come into this case with a strong viewpoint already formed?
Can you rephrase that for me, sir? I didn't hear you quite well.
So you come into this case with a strong viewpoint already formed?
A strong viewpoint on what exactly?
Investigative genetic genealogy.
Yes.
You want the law to restrict law enforcement use of DNA?
Well, I want the law to have, like I said, I'm in support of House Bill 12. I want the law to be in support of DNA privacy, because that's one of our most acceptable traits that we have that is private.
And so you're not just reporting, you're actively advocating for policy change?
Yes, sir.
You chose two cases where IgG led to false suspicion?
Yes, sir. Michael Usery Jr. and Richard Knapp.
You did not present cases where IgG correctly solved crimes?
No, I have not.
You did not discuss cases where DNA exterminated the innocent?
Can you define exterminated?
I want to say that I do not know the definition. I don't know the definition of it.
You don't know the definition? Okay.
You personally have never investigated using IgG?
Have I personally not investigated using IgG?
Yes.
No.
Your DNA has never been used by police?
No, my DNA has never been used by police.
And are you relying on other people's stories?
Well, like I said, I've been on podcasts to talk about IgG, and I also have other people come on my podcast to talk about IgG, like forensic scientists. So they tell me their firsthand experience, and I put that out to my public on my podcast called Reasonable Doubt, my Webby award-winning podcast, to get it out there. Yeah.
You agree that it has freed innocent people? Do you agree that IgG has freed innocent people?
It has freed investigating people, but it also has kept them in jail.
Your concern is not that DNA doesn't work, but how you think it should be regulated?
Yes, sir.
No. Your concern is DNA does not work, correct?
Is my concern that DNA does not work?
It's not that DNA doesn't work, sorry. But how do you think it should be regulated?
Basically how I think it should be used?
Yes.
What I believe is that we need our privacy. Yes, that's what I believe. We need our privacy.
And yeah, that's it. No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
You may step down. Defense, you may call your second witness.
Your Honor, the defense would like to call Val Barak to the stand.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon. Would you please state your name for the court?
My name is Val Barak.
Hello, Ms. Barak. If you could please just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Val Barak. I'm 20 years old, and I'm a sophomore at the Buckeye State University.
Buckeye State University. It's a pretty good school. What are you currently there for?
Well, I'm currently at the Buckeye State University with a pre-law declaration, and I plan to go to law school right after.
And do you have any plans for after law school?
Well, after law school, I plan to be a public defender. I hope that the defense will have the same effort standing behind them that the prosecution does. And I hope we all can see what can happen if defendants are let down by the law.
Okay, Ms. Barak. Are you interested in forensic science?
Well, it's not one of my main interests. I did take a class related to it with Professor Bailey Kim at the community college.
And what is your relationship with Professor Bailey Kim?
Professor Kim's actually one of my biggest mentors. They even wrote a recommendation letter that got me an internship at the Cardinal County Public Defender's Office.
And is there anything in specific you didn't quite agree with during your time with Professor Kim?
It was mostly near the end of the course. There was a certain extra credit assignment that she offered us.
And could you explain this extra credit assignment?
Well, we had about 5 different companies that we could submit our genetic information into, and after thoroughly reviewing the assignment, I decided not to participate.
And why did you decide not to participate?
Well, I had some privacy concerns after narrowing down my options and reading the terms and conditions.
And what terms and conditions did you read?
Well, I decided to look at gene heritage because that was the only free option Professor Kim had given us. And after taking a look at the terms and conditions, and as well as the law enforcement use policy, I had some real privacy concerns. I saw that gene heritage operates off of private philanthropy as well as external contracts.
And in your opinion, were there any benefits of participating in this extra credit assignment?
I didn't really see any benefits other than maybe your grade could go up. All you had to do was write a 1-page reflection afterwards, so you didn't gain any real knowledge. And Professor Kim was also a strict grader, so I did see the appeal to the assignment.
So you were interested in the extra credit assignment?
Initially, yes, but after reading the terms and conditions of gene heritage, I had major privacy concerns.
And what did you read in the terms and conditions?
It was their law enforcement use policy.
And what did that law enforcement use policy say?
It said that gene heritage shares DNA information with law enforcement.
So what exactly does that mean?
Well, that means that your DNA information could be used to aid a forensic investigation.
And is there any way, as you have actually read the terms and conditions, is there any way out of this agreement?
Luckily, there is an opt-out form, which I did find quite odd as well, because opt-in forms are, may I say, more trustworthy and also more commonly used.
Can you explain an opt-out option?
Yeah, so users could submit a separate opt-out option instead of, just filling in your opt-in separately.
So unless someone did their own extensive research like you, do you think they could have known about any of these terms?
No, I don't think they could have known, as actually my classmates didn't read the terms and conditions and they didn't know.
Okay. Ms. Barak, I'd like to talk to you more about House Bill 12. You are familiar with this bill, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you are in favor of this bill, correct?
That is also correct.
Why exactly is that?
Well, it all started when I was taking Professor Honda's public policy class. We had an assignment to look at a bill in the state, and I chose House Bill 12. House Bill 12 states that genetic information would be cared for more. It makes sure your genetic information was private.
Okay, Ms. Barak, is there anything else you'd like to tell the court today?
I just hope that everybody sees how valuable genetic information is. It's one thing that defines you, and you can't change it.
Thank you, Ms. Barak. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination?
Permission to speak, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Barak. You plan to be a public defender, correct?
That is correct.
So your career goal is to defend people of accused crimes?
Well, you could say that, but yeah, I guess it is.
You already believe the justice system often treats defendants unfairly?
I'm not sure. Could you restate the question?
The current justice system that we have today, do you believe that defendants are sometimes treated unfairly?
There are cases, yes.
You're not a forensic scientist, are you?
No, I'm not, but I did take a class related to it.
And you do not have a degree in genetics, correct?
No, I do not.
You've never worked in a crime lab or performed DNA testing yourself?
No, but I don't see how that's relevant.
Well, was the extra credit assignment optional?
Yes, it was optional.
And you chose not to participate?
I chose not to participate, correct.
And students can opt out of the law enforcement sharing if they wanted to, correct?
Yes, there was a separate opt-out form.
Was your grade lower because you skipped the extra credit?
I would say my grade was lower because I didn't perform as well as I wanted on the final. I wouldn't blame anything on the extra credit assignment.
But Professor Kim still wrote you a strong recommendation letter, correct?
Yes, they did.
The Golden State Killer was ultimately caught using DNA evidence, correct?
Yes,
And an innocent person was not convicted in that case?
correct. I'm aware of both the good and bad that DNA information can do.
You agree, and can the convicted guilty person be properly handled when it comes to DNA evidence?
What do you mean by that?
Well, when law enforcement is using DNA evidence, can the person not guilty be treated fairly?
They could be treated fairly, yeah.
Your main concern is privacy, not the DNA itself. Is unreliable, correct?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you chose not to opt into gene heritage, mainly because of the privacy concerns, correct?
Yes, I did have privacy concerns.
So it was not about the DNA itself being unreliable, correct?
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
You may step down. Counsel, are you prepared to give your closing arguments, or would you like 2 minutes to prepare and collect your thoughts? Both sides. Anybody want the 2 minutes?
I would like to.
Okay. So we will take the 2 minutes.